example of being able to do that. If you're looking to do something in your career, for example, you look for courses that are going to advance your career. It's going to help you in that situation. If you're looking for it for your business, like Jeff did, then that is the way you can do it as well. So I absolutely love that. And that is one of the fastest ways to accelerate your learning, I think, personally as well. So the second investment is one that I'm really curious about. It's one I haven't invested in, and it's one that I'm really interested in moving forward. But what made you decide to hire your first personal coach?
Ooh, that's a great question. So let's go back in time a little bit. I had started as a junior broker at the financial planning practice. It was a brokerage firm. And the guy who hired me, he was one of the top producers in the office. And I just remember, I don't even remember how it came up, but I remember him sharing with me that in his 7 or 8 year career that he had hired 2 business coaches. And once again, I'm coming from a background where like my dad, he topped out making like $40,000 a year when he was like 55 years old, right? So hearing somebody paying somebody for a business coach, it just didn't register with me. Like I get, okay, you want to hire a fitness coach or, I get like a basketball coach, but a business coach, like what do they do? I obviously wasn't ready to even understand that. Fast forward several years, I'm doing very well. I'm making about $250,000 a year with my financial planning practice. And I reached a point where I just felt unfulfilled. I didn't know why. I'm like thinking, gosh, I'm making the most money I've ever made. I just shared how much my dad made. I'm making almost 5 times what he ever made. I'm in my late 20s. Why am I not happy? And then I just through some chance circumstance encounter, I meet this guy online, and then he just happens to tell me about this coaching program that he's a part of. Not even an affiliate, right? It was just something that he just felt compelled to share it with me. And it was totally faith or just a huge risk. I'm like, I'm going to sign up. And this program was called the Strategic Coach by Dan Sullivan. It's still going today. It's a coaching program for entrepreneurs. And it was one of those, I didn't know that I needed it. It was just, I knew that I needed something. And I remember hearing about, my previous mentor hiring a business coach. I even called him. I'm like, hey, you told me you hired a business coach. Can you just tell me like what you were thinking and what was the motivation? And he kind of shared similar. He's like, I just reached a state of growth where I just didn't really know the next step or where to go. And that's why I reached out to this, whoever business coach he hired. At the time it was around $8,000, which I was making good money, but to invest, which it didn't feel like an investment at that time. It's like, I'm going to spend $8,000, and it's not like I'm getting like a TV or a vacation. It was like 4 sessions that I had to pay to travel to. There was just a lot of risk in it, and what ended up coming out of it was, I mentioned earlier how Rich Dad Poor Dad was that initial seed of like changing my mindset. Man, this thing was almost like a complete reprogramming of how I approached business and how I approached my personal life. And from outsourcing to delegating to how you structured your day and your week and where you focus your efforts and where you get life, from your business. I mean, it was so much that it was so much that I'm so grateful for the experience. I was in that program for 5 years, and it's been almost 10 years now since that I signed up, and it still has paid off dividends to this day.
That's amazing. And that is one thing. I'm sure it's hard to make that initial $8,000 investment because it's not a tangible thing. So it's one of those things you don't know what value you're actually going to get out of it. So you go through it. But if someone was in your shoes, say for the first time that you heard about that individual that had 2 coaches, and they were thinking through this saying, okay, this is brand new to me. I've never heard of somebody talking about this, because it isn't something that's talked about a lot, but I think it's something that could be really beneficial for a lot of people. What would you recommend to them if they wanted to go out and find a coaching program? Should they look at like referrals of other people? Should they kind of talk to some other people to kind of get their recommendation? And what should they expect to get out of it in terms of value?
Yeah, I would definitely say if you're looking to hire a coach or some sort of coaching program, the last thing that you want to do is pay for something when it is out of FOMO. So like if you join some sort of email list, all of a sudden now you've got like this funnel, this clock ticking down. It's like, you need to buy this now. Otherwise, you're going to miss out. that I'd say like that's not, you're not in a good place at that point, right? I think about if you are following somebody. I actually just had somebody on my podcast here recently that ended up hiring a real estate coach. And it was so interesting to hear because he had tried out 4 or 5 different other side hustles before getting into real estate. And I asked him, like, dude, like, I'm curious, man, because you already spent a lot of money. I don't know exactly how much, but it sounds like you've invested some money. And now you want to hire a real estate coach. And it was somebody that he had followed their content for several years, like watched all their YouTube videos, like read all their blog posts, subscribed to their newsletter. So there already was like that trust, right? Like already there was that rapport for the most part, like one-sided. But either way, it was like, okay, I like what this guy has to say. I've been following his content for a period of time where I feel comfortable. I do feel like this is the next step for me. I am now ready to hire this person as a coach. And I just felt like it was a very level-headed, seems like the right thing. He talked over it with his wife. It wasn't like hey, I'm going to go do this, ask for forgiveness later type of thing. And I share that because I also have suffered from FOMO, and I've got myself into situations where I signed up for that thing that I was like, oh, this is going to be amazing. And then like, $5,000, and 3 months later, you're like, what the heck? What was I thinking? Another learning lesson of mine. So I think that's one way, right? It's just like, if it is an impulse, like I need to do this right now or else I'm going to miss out. Not really. Like there's always going to be opportunities. There's always going to be opportunities that present themselves. So be patient, make a decision, talk to your spouse, talk to somebody else that, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Do you see any flaws, in my approach here? And, if you can make a decision and you feel like grounded, then I think you have a better chance of success proceeding that way.
I think that FOMO side is a great point as well, because I've done that as well on a lot of things where I think it's going to be, and you got to realize too, a lot of these creators and some of these coaches have really good sales funnels, and their job is to sell you on this to get that FOMO into place. But if you think through with a level head, and I love the idea of someone following along with the creator for years and building up that trust so that you understand what they're offering and what type of conversations you're going to be having within those coaching programs as well. Now, typically, are these coaching programs that you've been in, are most of them like group sessions, or are they one-on-one sessions?
Most that I have been is in group, and you can go either way. I will say the thing I didn't expect, right, was like when I went to this coaching program, because I did that for 5 years. After that, I was in a similar group coaching with Michael Hyatt, who, he's an author, former CEO of Thomson Nielsen. And I will say I joined both of those with this. I'm looking to connect with this coach, and the programs or the efficiencies, all the things they're going to share with me. And what ended up happening in both of those was the people I was surrounded with, and getting a chance to learn about where they're at, what they're struggling with, and also be able to share what I'm struggling with. And especially when I could share it with somebody, I was, financial planner back in the day, and to share, here are some of my pain points with my business, and I'm sharing it with a dentist or a chiropractor or a real estate person. And like, they could give me a different perspective that was completely not in the industry. And that was like so helpful. So for me, I'm definitely a little bit more biased towards having that group session, because it's when you get to connect with other people, like there is so much power in that.
I absolutely love that idea as well, and building up that community of people that you can bounce ideas off, especially if they're in different industries, because a lot of times you talk to people in the same industry as you, and you may be getting the same answers over and over again. So being able to do that as well is a major thing, which leads us to the next one. And your third one is very similar to that. It's mastermind groups. And mastermind groups are something that I'm actively searching for as well, trying to find some of those, because I think a lot of times when we're going through life, whether it's business or our career, you can feel like you're on an island. You can read so many books and you're learning all of this stuff. But if you are doing this on your own, sometimes it's hard to get to the next level. So can you explain what a mastermind is and why they are so valuable?
Yeah, no, it's funny because I can't remember who introduced the concept of masterminds to me. But like when I first heard it, though, it sounded very cultish. Like, what are you guys doing in this mastermind? What are you guys talking about? And when finally, somebody else explained to me, and like, you are just similar to what I just talked about, this whole group coaching concept is you are getting in a group with other like-minded business folks, similar goals, probably different industries. And typically you want people that are in a similar growth pattern. Maybe they're a little bit ahead of you or a little bit behind you, but you're all getting together and just sharing, hey, here's what I'm working on, here's where I'm stuck. And I've had different formats, and one of the ones I think the one I liked the most was like, hey, we would take, I think there was 5 of us in this group, and each week we would share like, hey, what's a win, for the week, and just share something cool that happened. And then take like 10, 15 minutes for that. And then the remaining 45 minutes of this call. And these calls could be a teleconference. It could be a Zoom call. It could be a Google Hangout. I mean, it could be whatever you need it to be, right? And the rest of the time was that